Hey, welcome back to the YouTube series on Google Ads for cardiologists. So we've talked about a lot. If you're jumping in right now, be sure to go back and look at the other videos. This is a series of videos. The links are going to be down below. So you'll be able to go back to the first video and work your way through it. But we've talked about a lot of different things that are important, and we're kind of making our way through until actually showing you, how we build these things out, right? So patient lifetime value. This is something that a lot of practices don't really put a lot of thought behind, I've noticed, but it'd be important to start thinking about it now. Because it's really, really important in terms of how an account is structured. So there's a whole process that we go through. In fact, we have a Google Sheets document that is a profitability analysis tool that allows us to look at all the different services in cardiology and analyze them almost at the service level to determine what the revenue opportunity is for each of them, and then work our way backwards. So it's really important to understand that, because it gives you a threshold of what you're willing to, it gives you a threshold of flexibility in what you're willing to bid in order to feel comfortable bidding that amount. Okay, so if you do a search for, let's just say, cardiologist near me, in Dallas, you're going to see a bunch of advertisers that show up. And this is what happens within Google is that in a microsecond, there's an auction that happens. And that placement of your ad at that time of the search depends on several formulas that work behind the scenes. We're going to get into those in an upcoming video, but just quickly, that ranking of where you're at on that page for that very specific search is determined by Google's ad rank. And Google's ad rank is the product of your CPC bid, so what you're bidding for that keyword, times your quality score. Quality score is a 0 to 10 ranking, and quality score by itself has its own formula. Now, nobody knows exactly what it is. It's kind of like the Coca-Cola formula that's in a vault somewhere in Atlanta. But we have a pretty good idea because there's been a lot of testing. So there's 3 elements of quality score. The first is ad relevancy. Does the ad copy answer the query? Okay. Is it relevant to what somebody's looking for? The second thing is landing page quality. So are you delivering value post-click? So when somebody clicks on the ad, they go to the website, is that relevant? Is that congruent and consistent with what they're searching for? Or is it something that looks spammy? Maybe there's some pop-ups. Maybe it's just very general content. Who knows? Maybe it was created by AI. So there are a lot of factors that Google looks at in terms of like gauging the quality of a landing page speed. So how quickly does your page load on both mobile and desktop, by the way? And then the third one is expected CTR. We're going to talk about this stuff later. I'm not going to get in the weeds on it. But my point is that when you're doing these very specific searches, what you pay per click can vary considerably depending on what they're searching for. And it can also depend on your local area, your market area. So somebody in Dallas, like I was saying, could be paying a lot more than somebody, I don't know, in Boise, Idaho. Because the markets are a lot smaller, right? So every market is different, but what you have to do is go through this. In fact, you don't have to do it, but it's definitely recommended to start thinking about patient lifetime value on a service line basis. So depending on what it is, what is that revenue that you can actually receive as a result of bringing a patient into your cardiology practice? And what are you willing to bid to dominate the page position and beat the competitors so you're always in that top portion of the search results? Now, why is it important to be in the top portion of the search results? There's a very high correlation between lead quality if your ad is at the top versus an ad at the bottom. There's a high correlation of CTR or click-through rate. So your click-through rate is a lot higher at the top. It's more visible. right? A lot of people don't even scroll down to the bottom. So the trick is really to dominate page position for the keywords that matter to the practice, and then also be bidding at a level that's comfortable. It gives you the economic comfort, the financial comfort, knowing that you are bidding at the proper level to be able to dominate and win in the game of Google Ads, and still know that you're going to recoup that expense and then some through the revenue that comes in as a result of the service that you're selling, or as you're consulting somebody who has some kind of an ailment. Okay, so just think about that for a minute, because we're gonna get into more of that detail later. And here's how the math could look. Okay, and this is actually very realistic. So cost per click, $10. Again, depends on the market, Dallas versus Boise, right? But a lot of times I see cost per click in this range. So we're going to say cost per click, $10. So somebody clicks on your ad, it costs you $10. Let's say that your conversion rate on that, so when somebody actually fills out a form or places a phone call, is 5%. So if that's the case, then it takes 20 ad clicks to get a single conversion, okay? And that means that your cost per conversion at a $10 cost per click is $200. It took 20 of those to be able to get that conversion. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to turn it into a patient. And conservatively, I'm going to say that 10%, if we're doing our job and we're targeting correctly and you're getting the right searches onto your website, and this is what we do, I guarantee you that you're going to get the right searches if we structure this, right? So let's say you get the right searches, the right people coming to your website, and your conversion rate from that click to actual patient is 10%. Well, now your cost per patient is $2,000. Now, there's a lot of variables here, right? So that conversion rate, if you're on your game and that phone call comes into your practice and somebody answers it right away, and they give valuable information, and they're kind, and they're professional, and they're accommodating, and they have empathy, and they all of the above, right? And they get somebody interested in coming into your practice, that conversion rate to patient can be a lot higher. It's the basics, especially in this world where it's very competitive. And they might not know your cardiology practice, and they might just be making calls because they don't really understand, who's excellent in your marketplace at certain procedures, for example. So it's really, really important to get that right, because you can jump this up to 20%, maybe 30%. And then all of a sudden this math looks a lot better. And again, we have a whole spreadsheet where we go through this performance analysis, this profitability analysis on a service line by service line basis. So if you decide to work with us, we'll take you through all of that. So let's continue with the make-believe numbers here. So let's say that we've determined, because a lot of these procedures in cardiology can be, fairly expensive, right? So let's say we're going to pretend that patient lifetime value, the revenue received is $30,000. Your cost per patient from the other slide that we just looked at was $2,000, right? So now we have a return on ad spend of $28,000. So you can see, even if that patient lifetime value was $10,000, you're still ahead of the game. So you have to go start thinking about that process. And again, this patient lifetime value could be very different depending on the service offering that you are providing. And that's why I say go through everything that you provide and start to think about that. In addition, what you've also done is you brought in a patient that adds additional value, right? Think about online reviews. So if you have a process where working with the patient, they're happy, maybe you've made their life completely different, those online reviews are an added benefit to this expense that you just made. And then of course, word of mouth marketing. And this certainly happens at the demographic that we're talking about for cardiology. Usually older, somebody that's much older, they have a big friend set, they have a community, they talk about your practice. Really, really powerful stuff. All right. Okay, so here are a few examples I'm going to show you. So this is Phoenix Heart Vein Vascular. And you can see like different, and by the way, I just pulled this up randomly. I have no affiliation with this company. I'm just looking at random websites. But you can see, different services, right? Interventional cardiology, peripheral arterial disease, vein-centered diagnostic testing, bradycardia. There's a whole bunch, right? Ventricular fibrillation. So these would be some of the service pages. Let's say that we're focusing on ventricular fibrillation. So we would then be sending traffic directly to this page. Ideally, this page has all the information that somebody would need as like an educational basis to learn more about what they could be experiencing. There could be I don't think they have anything here, but there could be some downloadable educational information where somebody gives their name and their email, and then you can have a nurture campaign. But the point is, when we're doing Google Ads, we're sending traffic directly to service pages that have content that's relevant to that particular search. And again, think about that quality score formula, right? Ad relevancy, landing page experience, expected CTR being expected click-through rate of your ad in comparison to the other advertisers on the page. This is landing page quality. And the better you can do with your page that matches that query, the less amount you're going to be paying per click. And I'm going to talk about that in a future video. For now, I just want to show you some examples, right? So if your website is structured this way, great. If it's not, then start thinking about structuring it in a way where you have different services. And if you can, create some videos, create some resources that can be downloaded. Let's take a look at another one. This is Heart and Vascular Center of Arizona. And again, we have different treatments here, right? There's a whole bunch of them here. So, if we're talking about stents, they got this section. Let's just take a look at it. What is it? Risks and benefits, a lot of content. And by the way, this is amazing for SEO as well. So you're actually killing two birds with one stone. You're creating a page structure that allows you to pay less per click within Google Ads. And then you're also helping your own rankings on the SEO side by creating quality, helpful content for your target audience. Am I a candidate? Okay, so all these different questions that somebody might have. Think about videos. If you have videos, if you have patients that are willing to get on camera, talk about their experience with your practice, even more powerful. Get to know your cardiologists. Okay, who are these people? What are their credentials? These are trust factors. There's a whole bunch here, right? So start thinking about that for sure. So again, page structure important for SEO, but also for PPC, for pay-per-click marketing, which is what Google Ads is. It allows us to be able to run your ads to very specific service offerings. Again, thinking about patient lifetime value and making very smart strategic decisions about how much we're willing to pay per click, depending on the service offering and how much revenue that provides. But it continues post-click. We're talking about what happens after the click. And you could do yourself a huge favor by making sure your page is structured properly. Now, do you have to do this to run Google Ads? Absolutely not. This is something you can build out over time for sure. Okay, but I just want you to start thinking about it because this is really, really helpful when it comes to driving additional performance and getting way, way, way more bang for your buck out of Google Ads by having that post-click experience that allows you to be paying less and be ranking higher. And again, we're going to talk more about that here in a bit. Here's another example, Tri-City Cardiology. Again, I haven't spent much time here looking at the services, but it looks like they have, different sections, right? Diagnostic imaging. What does the revenue look like for that, right? So what are we willing to spend to bring somebody in for diagnostic testing? What is the conversion rate between diagnostic testing if they get in the door and they get tested and then they go on to different services? So that's important as well. So you can see on this page, there's a lot of trust signals, way to schedule. I mean, there's not as much content as the other one for sure, but this is structured pretty well and they have a whole bunch of different locations, right? So definitely start thinking about that for sure, because that's what you need to be able to create a campaign structure that's built out with strategy in mind. It's built out for very specific service offerings and you've done the legwork up front, knowing what the revenue opportunity is, knowing what you can spend on a per click basis, and again, depends on your market, it can be very expensive on a per click basis. You've got to have all your ducks in a row in terms of like making sure your ads are answering the query, your landing page is like perfect, and it's set up for what we call CRO, conversion rate optimization. It loads quickly. It looks great on desktop and mobile. All the stuff you do for SEO anyway, right? So it's like it's a double benefit for sure. But if you do that legwork up front, and it's hard work, but you're accustomed to hard work. You're going through this video series. So obviously you care to invest that time up front, right? So if you're doing it and your competition is not, it's just going to be even better for you. So take the time to actually think about that, because there's a lot of value there in doing that pre-thought before you start running ads, okay? All right. As I've mentioned a few times here now, I'm here to help, right? So this is very detailed stuff for sure. And Google Ads is always changing. The algorithms are changing. The match types are changing. The way that we approach this changes on a regular basis. And if you'd rather focus on just providing quality care to your patients, and you don't want to worry about learning something new, and if you're worried about structuring incorrectly, it's very easy to mess these things up. That's why I say it. So if you need help, just reach out, brandrocket.net/schedule, 15-minute phone call, and we can go from there. All right. Thanks for hanging in on this video. Really important stuff, and see you in the next one. All right. Bye.